Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Lobby, GameSpot's weekly hangout here at 2 p.m. Pacific. We kind of thought Danny O'Dwyer might still be in the intro video. It's a bittersweet episode. It is our first without the great Danny O'Dwyer. He's gone on to do new and exciting things, and we wish him the best. But the show must go on, so I'm Mike Mahardy. I'm your host now. And I'm here, as often is the case, and will often be the case, is Peter Brown.
I am still here.
Yeah, and your beard is much less bushy than I'm used to.
Yeah, it was pretty big. It was getting up there, but I got a lot of hair on my head. It's weighing me down.
It's more than me. And Rob Hamlery.
Hey.
What's going on?
I can't really grow a beard, so.
I feel like I comment on Pete's too much, just beard envy.
I love it.
We're going to have kind of a long episode today. There's a bunch of smaller segments we're going to get through. But yeah, so stick around, I guess. You'll know when it ends. But yeah. Anyway, we're going to start with BioShock Remastered, which is out this week. I guess there's 2K's calling it a BioShock celebration or something. What anniversary is it? Is it an anniversary? 10th? Yeah, it's 2006, BioShock.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe that was the occasion, but it's on PS4, Xbox One. Mm-hmm. I guess we were talking about like BioShock's legacy, kind of, because people have not talked about BioShock enough at this point. I take it you guys are both fans of the series.
Yes. Political commentary, environmental storytelling.
Ayn Rand.
Ayn Rand.
Ayn Rand.
Ayn Rand.
Yeah, it's, I think the general consensus, I don't know, still, like, maybe you guys would disagree. I still like the first the most out of all three.
The first hit me the hardest.
Yeah.
And I actually was late to the game. I mean, I played all three, but having been so when BioShock Infinite was like being teased and like on its way to become released, I was like, oh, I got to go back and play these. So I played them all in a row, and man, that first one like had such great twists in the story. Just that world was so engrossing. Yeah, I mean it was definitely one of my favorite games. All the way through that game too. Like the ride was like for real. Like I don't know, so many movies or games and anything you could agree on is like, oh, there's a drop here. I didn't feel that way at all with that game. Like all the way through.
Yeah, it was like a really impressive like collection of set pieces put underwater, which was kind of novel at the time. Like we hadn't seen a lot of that. But then you coupled it with this whole Big Daddy Little Sister thing. For me, that was the iconic experience of the original game that just still sticks with me. And I guess they didn't wear it out, but they sort of, it ran its course. So I understand why it didn't continue into Infinite. But yeah, that's really what stood out for me. That was like a pretty, the moral choice was so real, right? And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it had the twist, the would you kindly twist, which I guess I won't spoil if you don't know it by now, but it doesn't really, it's marked for kind of being the one that actually looks at like what it means to play games if you want to get really deep into it. But still, like I played it I think 2 years ago again, and I haven't played the remastered version on PS4 or anything, but it still holds up really well in how it feels. Like it's still a little jarring because there's not any auto aim, which or maybe there is like that minuscule one to help you, but it's very, very kind of unforgiving if you're not accurate. Obviously, you can use plasmids and whatnot in addition to just conventional 1940s, 50s weapons, but it held up like really well from what I played. And obviously, 2, you return to Rapture. 2 is the one that I like, not to be contrarian, but I actually think I like it more than a lot of people.
You contrarian prick.
Yeah.
It was way different.
Thanks for shrugging off the insult. Just continuing.
Yeah, it was way different, right? It had that horror feel to it, where already there's like chaotic splicers, right? Is what they call them, all around the world. But then you have this. It's Big Sister, right? The one that stalks you the whole time. That every aspect of that character was terrifying. The noise, you knew when it was about to come after you. It would kick your ass. You felt like you were constantly uneased throughout that game.
Yeah, the really cool thing and kind of disappointing, obviously the Big Sister shows up at set moments throughout BioShock 2. The original plan was to, under 2K Marin, was to have her this like persistent threat that wasn't scripted. Kind of like if you played Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, the Nemesis randomly will bust through walls and doors.
Screw that.
And I mean, that makes that game a novelty, but I almost wish they hadn't like shirked that and just kept that. If they made like 2, the one where she's constantly chasing you, you're just almost always worried about your well-being even more than you already were. I thought that would have been a cool design conceit.
That sounds pretty cool thinking of it in the same terms as Resident Evil 3, because the Nemesis was definitely a game changer in that regard for that series.
Yeah. And like Minerva's Den's probably one of my favorite DLCs in general. The team who, like 2 of the members on Fulbright Company who did Gone Home, they're working on Tacoma. They did Minerva's Den. Steve Gaynor was the lead designer. It's well worth playing. BioShock 2 is well worth playing just to play Minerva's Den, but in terms of gameplay, BioShock 2 was different in the way you could do like the Skyrim, a power in one hand, a weapon in the other as the Big Daddy, which was really fun. I think it's kind of underrated in terms of gameplay, and I thought it actually flows really well from like one combat situation to another, and how you combine weapons and how you use the powers to supplement them. And I think that's like one thing the game doesn't always get talked about, but I think it's just overshadowed by the first BioShock.
I didn't play BioShock 2, but I know the conversation around it is sort of like, yeah, it's the lesser of those first two games. How did it fall short in a lot of people's eyes?
I think it was just the story was almost like, felt like it was lingering in Rapture too long, and they didn't really make use of the fact that it was cool that you were a Big Daddy, because in the first game you don the Big Daddy armor later on, right? And it slows you down, and it was kind of cumbersome from what I remember.
Like a moment or two, right?
It was like a chapter, if that. Yeah. But BioShock 2, I feel like it's a very fun game. I just don't think it changed things up enough to warrant this hanging around in Rapture, giving you a glimpse at like this world that, Rapture, the first one was interesting because you're figuring out why it crumbled, and like you're kind of seeing it happen in the process as well. BioShock 2, it had already done, it was just this decrepit underwater city, and it didn't really seem to be going anywhere the whole time. Although it is really fun from moment to moment. And then obviously 2013, BioShock Infinite rolls around, and it's totally different. You're in Columbia, the flying city.
You're in the sky.
Yeah. You go from what's the Gungan city called in Phantom Menace?
Don't.
I was waiting for someone to do the comparison. I had to throw it in there. Yeah. Well, with like their rebreathers that they wear.
Yes. Yeah. I was a huge fan of that game, despite
the Phantom Menace.
No, I said game.
I know.
Jerk.
There was a game.
Whatever. Yeah. I actually really like that game. I mean, visually, I actually like enjoyed that game a lot, and I felt it kind of got overshadowed with like the themes of like racism and all that stuff. Like, I mean, that people really didn't like that. I found it really interesting all the way through, and I thought the twist at the end was freaking crazy. That was a game where like I personally would put so much time. I think also because I played like it in like 2 sittings. Like I just went nuts on that. Damn. So it was like I just went nuts. I had
really well paced.
I didn't know what it was. I was laid off at when I was at my last job, and I had nothing to do.
Fond memories of
apply for job
BioShock
or play BioShock Infinite.
Let's escape. And so it was like 2 or 3 settings, and man, like that twist like had me thinking for a couple days. It was one of those moments. Like, there's movies and games in your life where you just like can't stop thinking about it. And I even was so frustrated with that ending that I immediately, and it frustrated in a good way. It was just like a really like curveball for me. I was so frustrated. I was like, I want to see it. I want to play it again. I immediately started playing again and realized I probably shouldn't. I should go eat or something like that. But I just wanted to see, all those
find money,
all those motifs and foreshadowing things from that game all the way through. Since in the first few seconds they were doing stuff like that, and I thought that was just really great. But visually too, it's a stunning game.
Yeah,
especially for its time.
I'm assuming you played it as well, Peter.
I did. I never ended up finishing it, but I definitely really liked what was there. It was impressive to me how they could sort of make the game feel like BioShock, but have it in such a different setting. With all of that mobility stuff thrown on top, I thought that was really rad. I like those sort of mechanics in games. And it just married really well with BioShock's style of shooting.
Yeah.
I can't remember why I didn't finish it. I got pretty far into it, though, and I definitely liked it.
Yeah, is like the statute of limitations on spoilers up yet or no? Like, probably not. I don't want to. It is a cool twist. I don't want to ruin it for if there are people.
Yeah, I wouldn't do the twist.
The remaster's out this week. If you haven't played it, go play it. I think it's well worth it.
Right.
It gets gruesome, as you can see right here. Oh my God.
Nun setting herself on fire.
Yeah. It gets right away when you first get the skyhook and you jam into the guy's neck.
Oh, it's wild.
Yeah, and it just starts spinning in his
right.
like jugular. The one complaint I have about like pacing wise or like actual gameplay, I felt too overpowered toward the end. Maybe I was just playing on normal difficulty, but by the time you have all the different they're not plasmids, I forget what they're called in this. Tonics?
Right. They did change the name.
Yeah, and by the time you have I know Mary just the other day when she was here was saying she just spammed Murder of Crows. That one was to shoot crows at people. I like there's like an earthquake one, I think. I don't know, but then
yeah. I mean, I understand that, and yeah, you could definitely feel that way. That's understandable, but I mean, if I'm doing crows all day, I'm gonna get bored, right?
Yeah.
You gotta change it up.
Yeah. Sure.
The thing that actually in that game I remember getting tired of was the element of you taking down those giant blimps.
Oh yeah.
Was that like toward the? I think
it's like 3/4 of the way.
That was a big fight toward the end. It was like an aerial.
And it's like it was just really repetitive, and it felt like it was kind of half-assed. But in general, that was a very unique game compared to that franchise. I respect them for changing it up so heavily. What can we do different? Let's take this, guys.
The world was weird though, because there was like a Coney Island area. It was kind of like, I don't know, 1940s Brooklyn almost. When the people lounging on the beach and whatnot. It delved into some like things in terms of like racism, and then also like no Irish people allowed in these bathrooms. It just felt very much like that era of America, like fear of immigrants and whatnot.
Wasn't there like some high society like party scenes?
Right.
You had to, infiltrate, and I actually thought those were pretty cool. It was
like
a nice
masquerade kind of thing.
Yeah. I thought it mixed it up.
Yeah.
Nice way.
I don't know. I liked it. I thought the world itself was super weird and in a great way, and I think the logical direction to go after Rapture was up, or maybe I guess the illogical direction. I don't know. I'm not an architect of sky cities, but I don't know. Do you have any intention of returning to those? Well, okay. So if you didn't have like 90 other games you need to play and getting ready to play 90 other games and traveling to China and Japan like you are, would you return to these if you could? Or do you not have any interest?
Yeah. No, I'd actually really like to. I think it's been long enough. And I never gave BioShock 2 a shot. So it'd be fun. I'd like to.
Yeah.
I might.
Yeah, if I were to pick one, I would probably start with 1 again. I mean, of the 3, right? It's like the most notably different and is somewhat modernized, I guess you could say. Start at 1 and see how you feel,
Yeah.
I would still like to do 2 again, to be honest. Like, I kind of forget those moments with Big Sister, but I remember like being frantic and like running around and stuff, and I just remember enjoying that element.
Yeah. Definitely. I think I kind of always want to play all those. They just feel too great. I love that vein of like the Looking Glass Studios vein of game, like Deus Ex kind of, not like Deus Ex, System Shock. Like now Dishonored has like BioShock influences, kind of the first-person shooter, but very much more measured pace to it and like almost adventure aspects. But yeah, that's BioShock Remastered Collection. Tell us in the comments below if you plan on playing either of them, or I guess any of the 3 in the near future. Tell us what your favorite is. Tell us why you don't like 1 or 2 or Remastered. And cool.
Tell us what your dad's like.
Yeah.
Tell us everything.
Like?
You have a long list of things to tell. I just want to know. Well, my dad?
Yeah.
Bruce Brown. He's 70.
Bruce Brown?
Bruce Brown.
That's sick. It's
he's
alliteration.
70 and he's still writing about tech.
Oh, yeah. I remember you telling me this. He's a prolific tech writer at his elderly age. Anyway, Halo 5 Guardians has a new update on both consoles and PC, but most notably on PC because Forge came to the platform with Windows 10, as well as custom games. So you can essentially play like LAN games on PC now, which is the first for the series.
Sure. I mean, online, right?
Sure, online.
Mary and I did a stream last week. The day before the release, we got like an early copy, which was nice. But that game is cool, man. Like, I'm excited to see where it goes. I mean, it's Halo 5 multiplayer free on PC. Mm-hmm. That's like kind of wild in itself. The only problems being that you're not getting experience, you're not raising your level at all, but you're still enjoying the game in every aspect. As far as like the actually to separate from you can't do Warzone or any of the other a few other types of game modes. I believe you can just do like basic team battles,
4v4, right? Or max?
No, 8 on 8.
Okay, 8 versus 8. Okay, cool.
So 16 players. But what's exciting for me is when I got to have hands on with it and actually mess around with the Forge stuff. Because again, like I don't know, you guys have seen it in like on Reddit and all these places of these GIFs of these player-made Forge maps, and they're freaking incredible. The amount of time people are putting in. They've revamped their whole Forge system to make it easier. You're adding in what's called prefabs, which you can share. Prefabs being like, I make a base myself. I just put it up. And it's like the speed and the intuitive nature of it is so freaking quick. We played probably like, I don't know, 24 maps in the span of the stream that were all player made. And you could make your own. So I could take a prefab and bring it down so I don't have to spend the hours on end making a base. It's really great. And I'm actually really excited to see how well it does, because I would imagine it would do well. Mouse and keyboard control, really great for, making maps and everything. Yeah, and then here's the other thing is that Jean-Luc here actually showed me there's like a subreddit for Destiny, because one of the problems being, hey, say I do not have Halo 5 on Xbox, I don't have any Xbox Live friends. That's a problem. How am I going to play multiplayer? I got to find people in order to join a fire team. What's cool is that despite them making a update soon, they said they're going to make a custom matchmaking ability, which is huge. You can still right now go into a subreddit and just find a fire team. There are tons and tons of people who are like, hey, you want to play? Let's friend up. Just join this. And Jean-Luc was saying he was playing like all weekend long, playing these awesome Forge maps.
Well, that's like what Titanfall 2 is implementing with networks, right? To extend the longevity of, or the lifespan of a multiplayer shooter, which drops considerably, which this is what, the 9th update or 8th for Halo 5?
The
9th, right?
Yeah.
Anvil's Legacy.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, a big point of the update is Halo 5 like worth returning to now, whether on consoles, especially obviously on PC. It's the first chance you'll have on PC, but I don't know. Have their updates been doing a good job of drawing you back in? I know you're playing periodically, and you and I do streamed every once in a while.
Yeah, I definitely put in a couple hours whenever I can for each update. It's a back and forth thing. I definitely enjoy it. I know what to say. I think it's mostly. I think I just need friends to play with. Maybe to.
I'll be your friend.
I don't have any friends. Yeah. But they add new maps, they add new weapons, so it's fun to try out those. Like they added a new ship called the Wasp that's really fun to use.
Is it just a rich white person you fly around on?
Well, at the end of the day, yeah. I mean, what? Oh, let me rephrase.
No, like in the sense of the acronym WASP.
Oh,
That's what you said, a rich white guy.
oh, I thought you were insinuating like microtransactions.
Oh,
Like
shit, I should just roll with that
cards,
segue. Yeah, go for
with
it.
cards and stuff that you can buy.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about those cards that is just so unappealing to me. Like every time I finish a match, it's like open this pack, boom, confetti. Look at all this, and then you get into the menu. I got to open them, and then I'm sick and tired of constantly seeing numbers of like how much it takes, and then money.
Yeah.
And the money thing is just killing me with microtransactions in my face, and I just find that frustrating. I don't know, but but in general, it's a fun ass game, and I'm more inclined. The updates are great, and I actually think they do a great job of delivering those. People who are huge Halo fans have respected that. However, I'm more into this Forge idea. I think this is going to take off. They're really setting a nice groundwork for some community involvement, and there's already been one. Now it's ever so going to grow. Like it's exciting to me. I mean, you've seen the maps. Just to touch on the maps that like you've seen, right? Like. I'm trying to think. There's one. Jean-Luc was. I mean, that people have made.
We went to 343 recently to do kind of a feature on this and coming to Windows 10, and they weren't allowed to promote Forge with other properties content, but they showed us like someone had made an Endor map, like tree houses, kind of in the walkways. The intro, they did a whole intro cinematic with R2D2, and they showed Vader burning. They put a Spartan, like a black Spartan, on his back, and
had flames. So it was really great. So
the funeral pyre, yeah.
Yeah, so as you know, in Return of the Jedi, there's like that.
Wait, what's that?
Don't do this. It's Vader, and he's like, it's Luke looking over Vader, and his his helmet's charred up, like this.
Finish what you started.
Someone like recreated that whole thing, and it's hilarious. Like that's your intro to like the match.
Well, yeah, you can control the cameras and whatnot for people unfamiliar with Forge.
Yeah, so he put mist in. It's Endor trees with platforms, and you're flying around.
I love that it's hilarious.
It's hilarious.
Yeah,
well, it's hilarious that he customizes
like
his
Halo
own
assets.
Sure.
Well, he's got like R2D2 in one shot, and then it's just like Vader dying. You know what's up. Star Wars, right?
And then a bunch of Spartans leaping between tree houses and kind of falling off a lot.
Yeah.
But there was a giant foosball table, which they said, like a big point with the mouse and keyboard controls now is you have much more fine-tuned control over the level editor itself. You can actually change the mathematics of like man cannon, so you can do a 45-degree angle as opposed to like a 35, for example. But the foosball table, I don't understand how it worked, but that was also made in like 4 hours by someone on their Halo 5 QA team that had never worked with Forge before. Right. So that's why it was appealing to me. I haven't gotten the chance to play it much. I know you did a stream last week, I believe.
And the game wasn't even released yet. There was all this stuff already available. I just think it's going to really exponentially grow. Yeah. And the other thing, too, is there are these devoted fans, and just imagining 16 people just like frantically working and building these elaborate maps.
Yeah.
And now with the ability to just drop in, some guy made a Star Destroyer, just drop that in. Like, or pod racing, right? Some guy's like, hey, I have all the pod racers that are hooked up to Ghosts. They don't drive that well. But make your own map. And, recreate, episode 1 pod racing from 64.
Now, this is Halo 5.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I am excited for that stuff.
One thing I do want to touch on that the chat has kind of been saying jokingly, but it might be worth talking about. So Microsoft's making a big push for Windows 10. I think Gears of War Ultimate Edition was the first game, and then from here on out, if I'm not mistaken, every Xbox One game or every Windows 10 game you buy you'll have it for free on the other platform. Or maybe it's Xbox One to PC to Windows 10.
So
you'll be able to play it on
I think
10.
ReCore is the very first game where it's cross-buy.
Okay.
So where you buy it, you get it definitely for both platforms. I think for Gears, you had to like buy it on both, but you could cross-save or something like that.
Yeah, and from what I remember, because that was when we did the re-review of the game. But if I'm not you were saying last week that the Halo 5, the update on PC is kind of tedious, and people are wondering if this is just
I mean,
a half-hearted attempt to bring people to Windows 10 even more.
It's Windows 10. Unfortunately, it's got some bad rep,
which we've all seen pop up on our PC at one point.
But what was surprising to me was you had to opt for the Anniversary Edition update, which does not do anything significantly worse or anything bad to your operating system, but it still required my home computer is not all that great, especially with internet speed. But it took me like 2 hours to download this Anniversary update.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty sure, I don't know. I think your computer can be opted into already, you may already have the Anniversary update, is what I found out later. It just depends on whether you have that unlocked in your update and settings on your PC. I don't know.
Either way, it's bigger than just like a firmware patch for a driver patch for your graphics card. I mean, it's a whole update for an OS just to get this game to play.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's not that great. I mean, I'm not saying that's just brush past that idea, but it's still worth saying that I don't know, they're making a cool push for Halo Forge, namely. But yeah, it's your choice if you want to do that update or not. I mean, I don't have any problems with it.
Yeah, hopefully, Halo 5 will have a little more blood in its veins until we get to Halo Wars 2 for those of us interested in it, and then the eventual Halo 6, which they've said will be on PC right from launch, I believe. So that'll be a first for them. But anyway, it's Halo 5 Guardians Forge mode on PC and Windows 10 now. If you plan on playing it, if you plan on checking out Forge, if you're a big fan of Forge on consoles and want to try it on PC, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Rob, you've been having a tough time with a certain game the last few days, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Halo 5. No, just kidding. RIVE.
RIVE, yeah.
RIVE.
The last game from Two Tribes, the developer, about a year or two ago.
Tokitori 1
Yeah.
and 2.
And they essentially just announced their early retirement from game development. They said, essentially, they called themselves dinosaurs in the blog, and they said that there's just too many things to keep up with. They've been developing games since 2000, and they can't really keep up with Twitch and just this explosion of indie games that the market's flooded. Or this is what they were. I'm paraphrasing.
Well, I guess I'm making this gesture. I talked to them back during GDC, and they actually wanted to make it very clear this isn't a we can't keep up kind of thing. That's not the basis of it. What's really driving their new direction to back out is they told me that they've kind of accomplished what they set out to do. They've figured out, okay, these are the games we want to make. We figured out how to make them, and RIVE is sort of their game, the thing they've been working towards this whole time, both develop the skills and development and business and all of that. So yeah, I think it's partially like that, but I think it's got more to do with those aren't the challenges they set out to accomplish. Developing cool games is what they set out to accomplish, and they feel like they've done it at this point.
Cool. Well, I guess that's admirable. I think a lot of developers probably, I'm not a developer, but you hear horror stories about crunch and development and how a lot of people just get in that cycle and don't know how to get out of that hamster wheel, I guess. So that's good on them for doing that. Yeah. Now RIVE is out.
It's out today.
You've been playing it, Rob? You said
I have
it's
been.
Pretty tough.
I go back and forth with how I feel about the difficulty. On one hand, I think it's a hard-ass game, and the other, the game actually makes me feel this way, and I'll get into that, but I feel like I'm a loser, and I suck at video games. Because just to explain that further is, this game is crazy. I'm not this is not my type of style of game necessarily, kind of like that Contra, fast-moving, always be shooting. So there are moments where I had to learn, okay, you can't stay still. You got to always move. But this game will beat you up like a Dark Souls game. You will enter a room and it's just oh, lava's coming out. What are you going to do? You got half a second to figure it out. You're constantly dying, and every time you die, there's a new message that pops up, and it says stuff like, wrecked, with the K. Or you suck. Literally, you suck.
It makes it personal.
I felt like I had a roller coaster of a time. First, I was like, this is way too hard. And then when those messages actually, I became a fan of because
It's like tough love, right?
Yeah, like it's beating you down, and the only thing you can do is climb out of it, or you quit the game and you walk away like a coward. So they're like my best moments or favorite moments in this game were when I'm talking like 12 deaths, 20 deaths, cannot get past this one part. There was even a message, and I don't know if this is because the build we had was a little interesting. I'm pretty sure this was in the game, but a menu came up and it's like, oh, like you wanted to turn down the difficulty to like fuzzy wuzzy mode or something like that, and it wouldn't let me click it, so I had to click hard and keep going. And then if
it's just baiting you to
it's just bait. It's so it's
be
like
weak.
It's kind of fun in that respect. So yeah, again, like eventually I was legitimately mad and kicked ass on that fume. And was able to get out of those situations many of times, and it just felt like a real intentional part of the game. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to move around. Now, having played a few hours last night, it wasn't dying so constantly that got me burnout, but it was more or less kind of like what was happening in the later half of the game, where like, it's like mission 6 or 5, and it's like, oh, they're throwing you into the same map, but now it's 0G. Okay.
Yeah, just artificially inflating it.
Yeah, and just to also clarify for people who don't know about the game, there's like 3 kind of more or less. What's nice is they keep turning off and on mechanics of the game, but generally it's like you have your asteroid-esque side-scrolling type of game, and then it's like a walk around, kind of go through different corridors and stuff, and then it's like an underwater 0G type stuff. But anyways, they throw those in back and forth. But it's like, man, when I'm repeating the same map or level design, but now it's in 0G, I'm not getting much out of that. That plus the character of the game. Peter, we saw this actually at PAX East a few years ago, and this did not have this narrative character.
I mean, it was like a compact demo they had, but yeah, I mean, what you described to me is something that's kind of new to me.
Yeah, it's just this character who I couldn't remember his name, so I tried looking it up. And
protagonist?
Yes, he's actually the character inside your bot, your like thing that you control.
Okay,
and his name is like. Literally, it's like Snake Pilot. Like, he doesn't even have like an actual name. Anyways, he's just like a Stallone guy that's always like talking and everything, basically giving the story beats. However, for me, I'm just not a big fan of it when a game is like making fun of like the video game industry, and it's like, oh man. There's one I was like, oh man, these first-person shooter guys don't have this perspective. Like, this is way cooler. Or
wait, what's wrong with that?
It's just, oh look, it's like an asteroids game. And it's like, this game is cool and visually appealing to me. I'd rather have no story and just kind of immerse myself in. There's also a side antagonist robot that's kind of luring you around. It'd be cool just to have that. He could just lure you around. That's fine. That's all I need. I want to feel like a little like I want to have questions, but this guy he's just constantly talking, and it's something I wish I could just literally turn off. And that was just kind of overwhelming and just getting me annoyed with the game toward the end. Or I didn't beat it, but like towards my last play.
To go back to gameplay for a second, does the difficulty ramp up, or are you pretty much just thrown into the fire right away?
You're thrown in the fire pretty quick. You start off, again, I should mention that. So you have your main gun right here, which is always on. That's like your sole means of like survival. And then as the game progresses, you get unlocks, you get armor upgrades via bolts that are gathered from enemies. And so you get different types of weapons, shotgun, missiles, and stuff like that.
You get to hack robots as well that like help you.
That's right. Yeah. You get to hack like health robots or even turret robots to like aid you. I'm sorry, what was your question again?
I was curious if the difficulty, you said the difficulty like throws you into the fire right away. Yeah. I'm asking because I played it at PAX Prime last year, and I think it was an earlier mission, but I was telling Pete, I looked up a gameplay video because I didn't think I had played RIVE yet. And I was like, oh my God, I have played this game. And it was I think PAX did, might have been like the Xbox indie program. Forget the name of it's escaping me right now, but it was ID at Xbox. Thank you, myself. But it didn't seem that hard. I was playing an earlier mission, and I think it was just a lot slower paced than what I've seen here. And you were describing it to me as like a Contra bullet hell platformer. So I'm sure they were going for difficulty the whole time. Maybe I just didn't play enough of it to get that sense. Because looking at these gameplay videos, it clearly looks very frantic and difficult.
It is. So let me paint you a picture. There are some moments in this game where they cleverly introduce elements that affect your mobility. So the mobility factor is huge because you get this an onslaught of drones who are just trying to run you out of the fucking world. They're just waves, constant waves, and you have to keep avoiding and keep shooting as you are trying to avoid them. But then a robot will show up and he'll just be dropping crates randomly. Now there are stacks and crates that I have to jump over that keep basically changing the level formation. That like I have a harder time jumping over these crates, and then more and more robots come. So it definitely builds and builds. And that particular level with the lava, like those running lava balls keep happening. Toward the end of like his health is the boss's health is like toward the end, like those things will just keep coming faster and faster. So yes, I don't know what you played, but like each moment, especially boss fights, definitely pick up, and that's where I typically die, is right in the end of that stretch. I feel like that's very much like a Dark Souls thing too, right? Like the guy will just start throwing you. He'll mutate or
people
start
were
throwing
waiting for Dark Souls-esque.
Yeah. I actually never played.
I wasn't gonna say it.
I never played really any Dark Souls, but like hearing you guys talk about it and like the feelings and seeing it, on streams and stuff, it reminded me of that and the frustration factor. And you will die in this game a lot.
All right, interesting. I'm always down for a difficult game. Kind of been not having my fill of those lately, except for maybe ReCore. That got kind of difficult when I was playing it. We'll talk about that soon. But anyway, that's RIVE. It's out now on PS4 and PC. And so that's the last game from Two Tribes developers. That's their swan song. Anyway, Rocket League got pretty crazy recently.
Dude.
Man, I'm so bummed I haven't played it yet because it sounds nuts.
It took like 2 minutes after we started playing before our jaws were just on the desk. Like, what the hell have they done? In a good way, I think.
I haven't gotten to play it yet. I was on the East Coast all last week when it came out, and kind of...
It's extreme.
Man, they know their game. They know what they're doing. Psyonix is... They just listen, I feel like, and so many times. So, just touching back on their last one, right, was Hoops, which was cool, fun idea, changes the game, because you're doing aerials and all this stuff.
Neo Tokyo, to be fair.
That would be another example of what I'm getting at is the essence of Rocket League that I think where people kind of like eventually step away from these new updates is that you can't change the core game. You can't change the maps specifically, because that is part of the core game, is riding up walls and knowing where to be for aerials and stuff like that. Changing the ball physics. You can't do that. This game keeps all that intact, but just adds like a power-up ability, right?
You can teleport to where another player is. You can use a plunger to grab the ball. You can use a harpoon to bring yourself towards the ball. You can attach spikes to your car so you can stick to the ball. You can create a tornado effect that throws cars in your way, like off their path.
You can shoot another opponent.
Oh, right.
Which basically it's like cutting the brakes and throwing it into NOS. So you see these guys, just like you shoot them and like they're spinning out of control. It's real fun, and I played that the most over the weekend. I could not stop playing that mode. It's really fun, and I think in a very good way it like preserves Rocket League. Like, because you start off the game, it's, these modes or these abilities come in 10 seconds.
What the hell was
you
that?
punch the ball into the goal.
That's the haymaker, and that and the spikes are like the ones you want to hold on to and wait for the moments.
So let me ask you this. If you don't use it, do you lose it?
Well, no, you don't lose it, but you lose the opportunity to get another ability.
Sure.
So certain ones you want to get rid of.
You can still hold on to it.
Oh, exactly. So the haymaker and the spikes, you want to hold on to that because that's your main offensive
you
push.
Can freeze it in the middle of the air as well.
Rallo in the Twitch chat is just asking if there's a power up to just puncture the ball and end the game. It's like the Sandlot scene where he's like, idiot, now we can't play no more. Anyway.
It's a really fun game, and I think, I'm super into it. And it, eventually... Yeah, what I was going to say is, these things come in 10-second cooldown, so you're still playing Rocket League in moments, right? The game or a round or a goal will happen, it's Rocket League for 10 seconds, and every 10 seconds thereafter. Like, you're still using your skills for the game, and nothing's changed other than now you're learning and trying new things with like, all right, now I got to like use spikes in a manner where I'm going to aerial up and attach to it in midair and just like have hands on my car and just run this thing to the goal.
Just drive it up the wall and hold onto it and see if anyone can catch you. What you talk about in terms of that flow is like super apparent because like, for that moment where like no one's using a power up and you're going to score a goal and you're like, all right, easy, I got this. it's like everyone activates their powers at once, it seems like. And then suddenly the ball is pulled to the other end of the map, then it's frozen in midair, and then just like all those other powers come into play. It's super interesting. And I think, like a lot of people were worried that doing stuff like this would impact the core gameplay, but like you said, they've found a really good balance.
Yeah, I think so. And, those Rocket Lab maps where they changed the map and everything, I think, I'm sure there are people who get a kick out of that stuff. But as far as like general consensus, I feel like around the office and like
cool
even
at
on
first.
Yeah, it's cool at first. It's nice to try something different, but you just want to preserve that feeling we all had for like the first initial months of that game, where it was like, I just want to get good at this, and everyone's still striving to get better at that core game.
Right.
So this is, I think this is actually like the perfect way to like let off some steam if you're having a bunch of.
You just had a 6 with your spikes.
I know.
Well, that's what Rocket League was always appealing, because for as unpredictable as it could be, its mechanics were predictable, so you get really good and master this game, whereas this seems like it's doing the opposite. It's just throwing these wrenches into the cogs. And I'm wondering, it didn't initially sound appealing to me, but like watching gameplay, obviously it looks really fun, but I'm wondering if it's kind of the systems are still in place for it to be something you can master rather than have these cool power-ups actually just disrupting the entire formula.
I think it goes back and forth. I think because these power-ups happen randomly, that if you are skilled and you're learning, you're doing whatever you are, and you have mastered the spikes, someone can still pull you out of it, and that's both the skill of that player, and it's also just luck, and it's just the luck of the situation of the game. So as long as you can embrace that and just be okay with letting someone just school you with one of these spikes or a haymaker, then you're having a good time. And again, I think it's like a nice balance with the actual game, because let's get real, like you do 2v2s online competitive, and you're gonna have 5 streaks of just losing. I don't know. I think it's a nice change up. Where it's like, all right, I just need to like rethink my life.
Yeah, it's an excellent option.
Yeah.
So another thing with the update is this. You said you're finding on Reddit this trading system, which is becoming almost like a seedy underbelly almost of the Rocket League community. Which, obviously, I'm not speaking ill of Rocket League, but you were saying you were looking through Reddit and kind of digging through like NeoGAF forums about how people are kind of selling these crazy crates for like $90 real world dollars now.
Oh, they're pushing keys, bro.
Yeah, it's keys, man. That's the
90 real world dollars translates into keys, right?
No.
Let me preface all this. So they've introduced crates and keys. Crates are obtainable. I would say roughly around maybe a dozen matches or so. You can get a random crate drop. Different system compared to the items that are introduced into the game. That's completely separate. So you get a random crate drop. Great. What's inside it? About a dozen exclusive. There are 2 different types. You can get Champions 1 and Champion 2. Each has like a bunch of wide range of different rarity items, including like 2 import cars that are like unique, Dominus variants and stuff like that. All of it looks so good. It's all like really exclusive, cool items. However, in order to open that crate, you need to buy keys. And there is no other way you can get keys other than trading with other people, but you're more inclined to open these things up. At least 1 or 2, I don't know. Keys are about $1.50 each or 20 for 20. So you open it up and it's a random luck of the draw. Whatever is in that crate, you can potentially get. So I lucked out on my second one I opened 4, and I'm not going to open any more ever again. Who knows? But anyways, I opened one and I got that Takumi RXT rare model, and it's dope.
I saw that. You tweeted the other night,
God,
right?
This is it right
screamed,
here.
Dude, it's got like a clear hood. You can see the engine. Sounds awesome.
What? Oh man,
so this is where I'm already getting like conflicted and frustrated, is because I really want this. However, there are things you can do in this game to avoid purchasing keys.
This is where it gets.
This is
sketchy.
where it's like, oh my god, what happened to Rocket League?
It's become like the auction house from Diablo 3.
First thing you can do if you don't like the system at all is you can turn it off entirely, so you cannot see it visually in the game, which is nice. So you don't see the buy keys option. You know, we were talking about Halo earlier. Like, I don't want to see that.
It's not just shoved down your throat.
Right, which is great. 2, I can basically never open a crate, get 5 crates, either trade them into the game and get a random piece of loot back or item back that's of higher rarity. So that could be one of these new like animated skins that are really cool looking. Or here's the real kicker or I could hit the web and go to, of course, subreddit Rocket League Exchange, and already you see it, and it's just auctions. So people who have unlocked a crate and have gone like the Dominus GT, and it's a legit car. People want that a lot. He goes, I'll start. This one guy links to like an auction song in his description on Reddit, and he's like, I'll start the bid at 30 keys. And then you scroll down 60, 90. Some guy is paying 90 keys, which is give or take $80. So that's the currency now. It's
right.
Rocket League keys. And so you can do player-to-trader item trading. You can do keys, which is the currency, or it's like you see other people, or the other way you can do it is you see people go like, I have these rims, which is actually the one I was thinking of. He's like, I got these rims, and that's what he sold. Rims for $80. Or it could be, I'm looking for this. You see like, want this, looking for this.
What was the base game? $15 or $20?
Oh.
20.
Yeah, sure.
Point being, you're paying like quadruple for rims than you paid for the actual game that they're set in.
Yeah.
That's nuts. There are people, they're enthusiasts that like Rocket League, including us, but I don't think I would do that. I definitely wouldn't buy rims for that. Although your car's pretty sick. I'll buy you lunch tomorrow for that car.
But I'm done. I like.
So give it to me.
I felt that. I felt that addiction. I mean, it was like, I got to open another one. I did. Shit item. Next
Traffic
one.
cone.
Yeah, practically. And the next one is the same. And I was like, I'm done. And that's why I turned it off. But I'm pretty sure the point being is like, maybe in a month or so, I could uncheck that option and see how many crates I have, which I could flip. I don't know.
Yeah. Because it reminds me of Overwatch, except Overwatch is like you see how much you're getting a pretty standard experience amount each match. Like obviously do better, you'll get a little more, but depending on what medals you get. But then you open the crates with the currency, whereas Rocket League sounds more like it's very, very rare to get a crate unless, like you said, you're kind of falling through the ranks on purpose to rise through them and get those streaks in the lower ranks, which Psyonix said they're going to start banning people who are manipulating the system.
Right. That's the really weird thing is people intentionally quitting games in order to get, you said, in order to get that nerf, because I guess that's kind of I guess it's not confirmed, but it's a mechanic of that crate drop is how many wins you have in a row. So, yeah, it's interesting. But I don't know. I'm still a huge fan of the game. I think it's a weird move, but I also think opting out of that is like no harm, no foul, right? Like the game is still fun. It's just cosmetics.
Yeah.
I'm still having a blast with it. I know you guys are too.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get in this afternoon. I still have not played it. But anyway. So yeah, that's Rumble mode in Rocket League's newest update, along with the trading system and whatnot, which is kind of becoming a little shady in a little areas. But anyway, let me know what the craziest thing you've done in Rocket League's new update in the comments below, because I have not seen half the stuff. I saw like spike saves and haymaker shots. But anyway, gonna talk ReCore.
All right.
Finally, it's Ask the Reviewer segment, I guess. But Timur Hussein in the UK is obviously not here. It's pretty late their time. Maybe he's watching. Yeah. So I'm going to kind of ask you guys about it. Pete, you and I have played the game. I played it at preview events, probably like 3 total hours maybe at this point.
It's a lot more than me.
Yeah. You've been following the game for a while. I guess everybody has because, it's got the Inafune name attached to it. But so what do you think of the game from what you've seen?
Been following it for a while, and I think it was around E3 when I started to hear things about it that got me really interested. Yes, I like Keiji Inafune's older work. But Armature Studios, they're involved in this, and those are made from a lot of ex people who made Metroid Prime at Retro. So then I started to hear the game is sort of like, it feels like a 32 or 128-bit game, like PlayStation 2 era kind of action game, and that sounds appealing because things have become kind of bloated, in a sense. So to revisit that old style of gameplay sounded really fun. Timur's review basically described a game that is what I was looking for until the very end, where he ended up getting to a point like every other reviewer where you essentially finish the campaign by going through, quest by quest, and then it's like, we need you to backtrack and collect items that are hard to find. You do that, and then it's like, I need you to do it again, but get more this time, and that process repeats itself. That sounds kind of crappy. So anyway, I spent about half hour with the game playing it myself before coming on here, which isn't enough to get a really great impression. But mechanically, like moment to moment, it feels pretty good. But I did encounter 2 bugs that made me have to restart the game within 30 minutes. One of them within 5 minutes.
The one you showed me was essentially the world itself had gone white. And you're on like a cliff on the edge of a white abyss.
I finished the first boss fight, and I walk out, and I see this hill, and then beyond that is just white. And I thought, this is going to teach me to air dash to some random thing that I can't quite see. And then I was like, no, wait, there are things just walking in midair. And I was like, oh yeah, there's nothing in front of me. The game has not rendered the world around me.
Yeah.
But before that, there's a mission where you're trying to dash through a door. You stand on a pressure sensitive button. You have to dash fast enough so you can get through the door before it closes once you step off. I apparently was like just at the right time for the door to catch me and then lock me in the geometry above the door. Oh. And I couldn't get out. So I had an autosave, which was fine. I had to exit. But this is a game that also has like really long loading screens, and you kind of take all this into account. You take the padding into account as well. And you've got a game that's really rough around the edges, it seems. Based on my experience and based on what a lot of people are reporting, including Timur.
Yeah, he said there were about 4 big bugs he encountered on Xbox One during his playthrough.
Sure, yeah. Again, it's a budget price game. It's only $40, which probably means something to a lot of people who kind of like weigh how much they want to spend. And it sounds like you'll get about 8 to 10 hours of like a decent game, but one that clearly maybe could have benefited from a little bit more time and attention towards the end game, which kind of just puts your back against a wall. It makes you complete chores.
It felt repetitive to me from the few hours I played. Obviously, like a big part, you upgrade her Jewel's rifle, Jewel being the protagonist. But then eventually you'll find enemies that are like kind of different colored, like red, yellow, or blue, and you just press a direction on the D-pad to switch to that color of ammunition because that happens to be the weakness of that colored enemy. Yeah. And I feel like that was a very lazy attempt to upset the gameplay. But then you obviously like the driving force being you're customizing your different cores, right? I think the cores being those actual spheres that give it the personality, but then you can put different frames on it. So there's like the dog that stuns people. There's the bigger gorilla. I think his name is Duncan. That you could put like hammers on his arms and whatnot and make him, he's like the brute. And then there's the spider one that like kind of zip lines you around. So that was the like driving aspect for me, is kind of customizing them, because there is like a loot fest kind of aspect too. There's different colored loot that you actually pick up to customize them with. I'm not sure if that plays into upgrading the rifle, but I think the main thing is like, obviously, like we interviewed Keiji Inafune recently, and at a certain point, we're like, is your Mega Man legacy kind of actually negatively impacting your future projects because everybody's expecting them to be similar? Because a lot of people said this is like a 3D Mega Man combined with Metroid Prime, which the Metroid Prime aspect was more appealing to me, but it doesn't sound like that really came through because, like you said, the item gating later on is like these specific quest items you need to go back and just like tediously search for, rather than like Metroid Prime, which actually like you got a new item that affected how you play and how you fight enemies, but then you just happen to come into a part of the world that you'd been before and you're like, oh, now I can do this. This sounds more tedious, and I don't know that that's appealing to me at all. I don't want to get to the late game and then realize I have to go back and find one more of these cores and God knows where it is.
This might be one of those games where you don't need to beat it. Like you can feel good about just getting to a certain point and being like, yeah, that's fine. I mean, after half hour, I kind of want to keep playing. I like the way movement feels. I like the way shooting feels. It's auto aim, but there's something to be said for that because it opens you up to greater mobility, and enemies can force you to move around a lot more. But you can keep the action going while that's all happening. So I find that kind of encouraging.
And I do see the kind of Mega Man combat in the sense that you're jumping and dodging in midair, and then you're dodging and kind of coming back around to shoot enemies from the other side. And that did seem like an engaging gameplay loop. I don't know how long it would have lasted for me after the like hour-long preview I played.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point we should. He's not helping his case with a game like Mighty Number 9, but it'd probably be healthy if people could look past Mega Man when looking at something Keiji Inafune does.
Sure,
I think because Mega Man has influenced so many things that we now take for granted in games. Mm-hmm. It's really easy to just look at that and say, oh, yeah, well, there's the connection.
Definitely.
But I don't think it hurts or benefits the game in this case necessarily. I think this game kind of stands on its own. And
how's like the narrative or story?
I'm
like really interested in what are these balls of energy that are Mac and all these characters? Is there like an explanation? Some like a dust... what they call the Dust Devil Storm or something like that took out the world or something?
So from what I understand, yeah, it's pretty much kind of like an interstellar thing where Jewel has come to the planet to try to find new colonizable planets for humanity, from what I understand. And she kind of comes to this dust planet, starts to discover things that she didn't expect to be here. I don't know how the core is playing to it. I just think that they're like the source of energy on this particular planet, but I didn't play enough to really get into the narrative. I know Tamora was saying it's nothing spectacular, but it drives the action forward, I guess, as far as like, just making it a vehicle for the combat.
That's good.
I don't know that I find the world looks kind of like that Borderlands 1. Like I get sick of the desert after a while.
Sure.
It doesn't look vibrant. Not that every game needs to be. And like I said, this makes sense. It's just Dust Planet, like this decrepit kind of barren place. But I don't know. It looks like maybe over 8 hours it would get annoying. But I don't know. It doesn't seem particularly interesting to me.
Damn.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. From what I played of the game. It kind of got tough later in the game. We played late game missions, and we being the people that I was playing with at Gamescom, we were playing, and a lot of us died. And the developers are saying, like, a lot of times they'll just say, "Oh, you're the only one to beat it to make you feel better. Maybe you'll write a better preview." But I was seeing people die left and right around me. The monitors were right next to me, and it got tough. I mean, you're balancing shooting these different guys who it kind of became like shooting at like sponge bosses or whatever later on, and it did feel like it could, like I said, wear thin after a while. I think Timur said it does a pretty good job of introducing new wrinkles to actually keep it somewhat interesting throughout. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have any immediate draw to the game right now. So that's Timur Hussein who reviewed it. It's 6 on GameSpot. You can read the full review. In the meantime, that is on Xbox One and PC.
Yes, cool. And you get it's cross-buy. So you buy one, you get both.
Cool.
Yeah.
And, play it on Windows 10 or Xbox One. All right. PS4 Pro. Pete, you're like one of our resident tech experts. Tech experts.
Wow.
Tech, TECH, spurt. Like you're spurting tech.
Yes.
I was at the PlayStation event in New York last week. It was relatively light compared to what I thought. I mean, I'm surprised they showed both. I mean, we definitely expected the Slim because we knew for those leaks that Sony, still didn't confirm it after those leaks a few weeks ago. But they showed off the Pro as well with like HDR compatibility. Obviously, like a 4K if you have a 4K TV.
It's the club sandwich of video game consoles.
Yeah, exactly.
3 layers.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah. PS4 Pro. It's interesting times we are in. We've seen a lot of consoles kind of get these like hardware revisions, some with like the most modest upgrades that maybe a developer would notice, but you wouldn't. Pro is sort of, and you can maybe point to Xbox One S, but PS4 Pro is really the first step in terms of, these like console generations just aren't going to exist anymore. It seems like these just like, midterm updates to a system. And it's coming with things like HDR and 4K. And there's a lot of stipulations there in terms of how those things will apply. I mean, the nice thing is that the HDR feature will apply to all PlayStation 4s, unlike Xbox One, which is currently only doing it on the S. But 4K is pretty much the focus of the Pro. We can also assume VR will be a focus. And it's going to be interesting, I think, for developers as well as the audience to deal with this division of the market.
You were just telling me the other day, we were talking about Battlefield 1 having, they had that bundle announced on Monday that was like, HDR support or whatever. I was like digging deeper because I don't know too much about the PS Pro, but that also depends on the developer releasing the HDR 4K for PlayStation Pro specifically, right? They have to allow that to happen.
So 4K is not a guarantee. It sounds like now we're going to see some games that are native 4K. They're going to be very modest games in terms of technical demands. Other games will render at a lower resolution, be scaled up to output at 4K. So it'll still fill your 4K TV at that resolution, but it's not rendered natively there. HDR seems to be a thing like 4K that is going to be optional for developers. And if they want to have it work, they have to enable it in terms of like, sure, you might get HDR on the PlayStation 4 Pro, even though standard PS4 supports HDR. I don't think that means you're automatically going to get it for any game that supports it on PlayStation Pro. This confusion is already confusing as hell.
Yeah. And you're wondering if this is just becoming the reality of obviously like console generations now, reacting like how long did it take like PC audiences? They've always been used to this stuff, like upgrading tech, but it's weird because I think being consoles, people assume it's just going to be this set evolution that takes place.
Yes, and I think with PC, like you said, people are used to the idea that the quality of a game is going to be in flux relative to their hardware. Console gamers have always just expected a certain standard. And I think a lot of that will persist, but it's going to become difficult when people are just choosing what console to buy. It's not going to be, is my console strong enough for this game, right? Like once they have a PS4 Pro or a Slim, I think people are going to understand like, okay, I can really only focus on games that have this tech. But making that choice, that's going to be hard for a lot of people. Yeah, but luckily for Sony, once people make that decision, they're pretty much in good shape. And I think you're going to see a lot of people picking up the Pro as opposed to the Slim.
Sure. What do you think of the price points now that you're speaking about Slim and Pro?
So the Slim starts at $300, right?
And then Pro is $400.
Right. So we don't know how much Scorpio is going to cost. It sounds like Microsoft is, based on their presentation at E3, like really doubling down on this thing and trying to hit a home run. That might be a more expensive system. But one of the things driving down the cost of the Pro is that it doesn't have a UHD Blu-ray drive in it, which means you cannot watch 4K content off of a disc. You have to stream it. That is something that is built into the Xbox One S.
Yeah. That seems like a weird omission for the Pro. Do you
it's a weird
have any
omission.
idea why that might have been the case?
I think it's an easy move for Sony to keep costs down because let's be honest. I think 4K for a lot of people, it's going to be hard to discern that difference unless something like, you walk into a store and you see these like really intricate nature documentaries on 4K and like, yeah, a flower under a macro lens is going to look amazing.
Sure.
But like a Hollywood blockbuster, like you're going to, in the explosion and the fire, you're going to miss all that stuff as it's moving by really fast. So I think cutting costs there, allowing people to stream 4K from services they already subscribe to is not going to necessarily hamper their 4K entertainment experience. They'll have access to it. For Microsoft, I think it's a boon for the Xbox One S. That helps them sell that system a little bit better. It is the cheapest UHD player out there. On the other hand, it is strange it's not on the Pro because Sony basically owns the Blu-ray format. It is something that they pioneered and that they have been a champion of for so long. So it's a little strange. And that starts at $400. Am I correct? For the Pro? I think that is an excellent price. It's going to be really telling how it'll impact PlayStation VR and how many games can really support 4K for people to understand that argument and really go for it.
And if you don't have a 4K TV,
I don't even have one.
Like $1,000, you're probably going to drop
but
on that.
People like to future-proof. How many of us bought Xbox 360s before we had an HD TV?
Right. Definitely. And that's the thing with I definitely did buy one before I had an
How about
HD TV.
refurbished 360?
I still have my launch day 360 that never got. It got a red ring, but I wrapped a towel around it and I still have it. I'm not kidding.
It's still in the towel?
Yeah, it's in the towel. I haven't checked if it works, but it's still in my room in a towel. No, but I got to see a few games up close because HDR, obviously, like you were saying, is definitely more noticeable than 4K to me.
Yes, I think.
And HDR is the exciting thing for me because, like, obviously, if you have like any kind of like interest in photography, HDR is a big deal. Like iPhones have it now as of the 6, I believe. But the thing with it was kind of weird because at the presentation, people around me were all saying they showed a few games during the presentation with the old graphics as opposed to the HDR. And then we went backstage and Naughty Dog had both The Last of Us Remastered and Uncharted 4. Obviously, Last of Us Remastered at its foundation is a PS3 game. It still looked really good on the PS4 Pro. But then they had a button that they had equipped. Like I think they were pressing the touchpad for the purposes of this presentation. And they were switching between like Nathan Drake was swimming underwater in a coral reef at one point later in a Libertalia in Uncharted 4. But the original footage looked worse. Like I was like, I just played this game in March or whatever it was. I don't remember looking that bad. And like I thought I was just being crazy, and I'm not like accusing Sony or Naughty Dog or anything, but
do it.
Other people were saying, is that just looking this bad in comparison to the PS4 Pro with HDR? HDR definitely looked really good, but the original footage looked like it had an extra layer of fog over it.
It depends a lot on the TV you're playing and the settings that are applied to it. Maybe those TVs weren't calibrated appropriately.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it just looks that much
intentionally
different.
But
you wonder like if there's any doctoring to make the old footage look worse in comparison.
That's weird.
But here's the thing. I don't think they would do that because HDR is going to work for existing PlayStation 4 owners. It doesn't influence their decision to buy a PS4 Pro. So there's actually no incentive for Sony to do that.
Right.
If you've got a PS4 already, it's going to work. And I think a lot of people at those events
definitely
have one, probably.
Are you guys tempted to buy the Pro now? I mean, obviously the Slim is good for people who don't have a PS4. There's no reason to buy a PS4 Slim purportedly if you have a 4 already.
I want to know more about the manufacturing process that goes into this because my PS4, I like the way it looks. It's a little loud. I want a quieter system. If the PS4 Pro can give me more power and be quieter than the standard PS4, probably a couple of years I'll buy one.
Yeah.
If they're going to adopt this like Apple-esque S release, why can't we have that whole system, right? Like, why can't I exchange my PS4?
Well, you can take it to GameStop and get $20 for it.
It's just like that's what's the killer for me, you know. And I'm sure for everyone, it's like my buddy of mine just got a PS4, and I showed him this, and he's like, "Great." I don't know. It's just, I think I'll eventually get one. I mean, that's, this is like our job here. You want to have the best equipment for the job, but I don't know. It's such a kill. $400 is a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it was actually, I think it's a fair price point compared to what I thought it would be, but at this point, yeah, $400 doesn't seem like something I want to drop on this. But then another thing that the presentation that stood out that if we had been talking about is they never once during the presentation said this is the most powerful console. Like, remember, like the Xbox One for the Scorpio presentation, they were like, this is going to be the most powerful console ever made at this point.
Right.
And like you were just touching on this, how like this in a lot of ways can become a boon for the Scorpio and the S because of its Blu-ray capabilities. But I know it's almost like Sony's pushing this is the most powerful console for the time being in November whenever it launches with PlayStation VR and everything.
Yeah.
But you think they would have pushed that if that were true. But I mean, obviously, like the Scorpio is still the one that I'm more curious about.
I think Sony is doing their best to court existing PlayStation owners to buy the new version. I think their market share kind of speaks for itself in relation to Microsoft, where Microsoft really has to account for the fact that they've had the weaker of the two main consoles since launch, and that has been the narrative around it. So maybe it's true that Sony's PlayStation 4 Pro will not be as powerful as Scorpio. Who knows if they know that or not. But they also don't need to really try to back up that claim. And if they were to make that claim now, before Scorpio is announced and we really know what's in it and proved wrong, that would suck.
Sure.
So I can understand why they wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
It's, it's like we try to like avoid absolutes, like absolute statements in previews and stuff like that for good reason, right? Because things change. Mm-hmm. And we don't always know everything. And I think that's the place where Sony is right now.
It's interesting to look at. You wonder how much of this is just a reaction to Microsoft, the Scorpio. Obviously, like the rumors the Neo came out, like when Giant Bomb had been reporting on the actual like information about it. You wonder if they push this up farther because of the Scorpio, and like obviously like NX news is rumored to be coming out really soon now, and that's going to be what, like Q2 next year,
March
purportedly. Okay, you wonder how much of this is like reactionary as opposed to something Sony had planned all along. I don't know how fast they can pivot in that respect when it comes to the actual economics behind the scenes and, like you said, manufacturing, which I don't have much background in, but I don't know. I'm wondering if this was something they pushed forward a little bit.
Well, the good thing about for Sony and Microsoft is they're working with AMD to make parts that are relatively simple for manufacturers of those chips to adapt to. In the past, the PlayStation 3 was notorious for being the most inefficient console to create the chips that powered it for various reasons. I think this has more to do potentially with the launch of PlayStation VR. Well, more than anything, and that's sort of spurred Sony's expediency in this regard to get out there first. I think they were just ready to, frankly. And it's also worth noting that maybe Microsoft is biding their time so they can wait and see what other people do before they actually commit to what Scorpio is. It might be the inverse. It might not be Sony being reactionary. It might be Microsoft just being slow or patient.
Sure. Yeah. Anyway, the Slim is definitely obviously, like I said, for like people who might not be in the game yet as far as this console generation goes, but the Pro is the one that like we're looking for, especially with like you consider Pro coming out plus buying PSVR, which is how much?
$400.
So 400 plus 400 plus 800. I mean, if you haven't upgraded to a 4K TV yet, that could be like $1,800 if you want to completely upgrade all at once.
Is it that much? I thought 4K TVs were fairly.
I was thinking they were around $1,000. I could be way off.
$500.
Well, you want to get one that's a decent size because you're not going to notice the difference in resolution if you have something that's like 32 inches. I don't even know if you can buy it. I'm sure you can, but you really want to be like 50 inches and above.
Okay, I'm not.
Yeah, and so beyond that, there are a lot of different things that come. Like with HDR, like you need to get a TV that has 4K and the proper HDR support. I've seen people who have been picking up Xbox One S's thinking their TV's up to snuff. They plug it in and the console's like, yeah, you're missing this stuff. You can get a little bit of a benefit. So it's like, if you want to get the TV that has everything you need, you're not going to be buying that cheap knockoff made in China. Not knockoff. You're not going to be buying, that economic 4K TV. You're going to be buying one that's little bit more robust.
Or like the first generations of 4K, right? Like they've improved over the years. So those are like the leftovers, I guess, right?
Yeah. Sure.
Oh, so what's the price range for like a 4K TV?
I was thinking like a decent one was like 1,000. I could be overshooting that.
I was looking the other day during this announcement, just loosely, not really like based on these hard specs I was just referring to, and I kept seeing 60 inches between $800 and $1,000.
Okay.
From people like Samsung, like manufacturers. That's like, okay, I will probably look to you. I mean, you can get a 4K TV cheap, but will it support everything else? I don't know.
Is it worth it at that point?
Is it worth it at that point?
Sure. Yeah. So anyway, the PS4 Slim is releasing September 15th, 2016, and that's going to be $300, whereas PS4 Pro is November 10th, 2016 for $400. So let us know what you think. Do you have a PS4 already and you're planning on getting a Slim? Probably not. Are you planning on getting a Pro November 10th? Let us know in the comments below. Rob, unfortunately, you've been on the whole show, but I have to kick you off. Wait, before you go, what are you planning? What are you working on? What are you playing?
Oh, geez. I've been doing news all week, so that's most of my my time. But, geez, man.
Put you on the spot.
Put you on the spot. I don't know. I'm trying to work on something. I think I want to dive into Forge, to be honest.
Cool.
I think people have already been like going nuts in that stuff. So maybe I'll do like a compilation of like hottest cool maps
That Rob made.
That
Make a few Star Wars maps.
Sure, with
Cool.
prefabs.
Awesome.
Bye.
Well, thanks for coming on, Rob.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. We're going to talk Destiny. We're going to bring Eric Tay on, our resident Destiny expert.
Oh, man.
Talk about that in a second. I don't know. What else are you playing?
I'm still playing Dragon Quest VII.
Yeah.
I put up the review in progress today after playing for 50 hours, and no one really cares.
No?
Dragon Quest as a series has never really been popular in America, but I've waited to play this game for a very long time. It is very long. It is very classic in some good ways and not so good ways. So I will continue to play that until I can finish my full review.
Cool.
But enough from me.
Eric Tay, what's up?
What's up? This seat is warm. Thanks,
Yeah,
Rob.
Rob farts a lot.
It's hot, Rob, for you.
Oh, no, I'm just kidding.
Anyway,
Yeah.
you were recently up at Bungie in Redmond or Bellevue?
Bellevue,
Washington.
Yeah.
Playing a little bit, if not all, of Rise of Iron, which regardless of what you did play, we can only talk about a little bit today because there's embargo yesterday, there's embargo today, and there's one on the 20th, which is tomorrow. There's one tomorrow too?
There's one Monday.
I should have
There's
written that
one
down.
tomorrow, or one today and one tomorrow. Every one of them are at 10 a.m.
And it
Pacific.
releases September 20th.
next week.
But I did write down what you can talk about.
Good.
So
Don't get me in trouble.
The title.
yeah.
The release date.
So, I mean, just like broader strokes right now.
Sure.
How does this compare to like Taken King? Because obviously Taken King like revamped almost the foundation of how Destiny worked in a lot of ways. But how Rise of Iron, what should we expect from this as far as like what it's doing for Destiny before, 2 purportedly comes out next year or whenever?
Sure. Well, first of all, since it is priced at $29.99, it's kind of like in between what you would expect of like a Taken King and like their previous DLCs, which were $20. So it's a little bit meatier than just, House of Wolves or The Dark Below, but it's definitely same time less than Taken King. I can't speak too much into detail about like, how much it like changes from Taken King, but I would say Taken King probably did more for the game like overall than this will. But this has a cool story that, follows the Lords of Iron. So you get that kind of background story about like, some of the guns you farmed and got from like the old Iron Banners, like who's Jolder? Like, that's a person that you're going to learn about, or Gillian, if I'm saying his name right. So like there's some of that background story. So it's kind of like a building up more of the world that already exists, and then kind of going to the new social space too, which I can't talk about the social space, but I can talk about getting there, which is kind of a cool setting because you've never really seen the kind of like the snowy mountain kind of stuff that you're seeing right now previously in Destiny, at least not that I can remember. And it's kind of fun. This is the first mission. It's kind of the first 10 minutes that you go through, give or take, depending on how slow or fast you go. But you kind of get to go up that gondola that's been in the trailers. That's kind of cool, and pretty much get to ascend a mountain to where these Lords of Iron used to kind of reside. They're kind of their headquarters,
Sure.
where they were based out of.
And I spoke to Bungie at Gamescom, and they were saying like, if you can't tell already, Rise of Iron is very influenced by like Game of Thrones. It's almost like a fantasy / sci-fi setting now, which like a lot of things are influenced by Game of Thrones. But no, like the first image they showed off was who's the main like Lord of Iron now?
Saladin?
Saladin. They showed
Yeah,
him
he's the
with his
only one
hammer,
left.
with his back to like this big breach in a wall, and then the two wolves. And the motion capture dog they use for the wolves in this is the same one they use for Jon Snow's direwolf.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Dude,
this guy, he's like
woof.
the Troy Baker dog of video games. But yeah, so you got to play King of the Mountain, the first mission. Is that the one where you're ascending?
Yeah,
to the
you're
new social
ascending
space?
up the mountain, and then you're gonna by fighting your way up that mountain, you'll essentially open access to that social space. Unfortunately, I can't talk too much about it, but
It's just a dance hall. People just doing their emotes.
there might be some of those new ones. You never know.
Just embargoes are screwing this whole thing up. But then there's also remastered strikes, right? Devil's Lair and Wretched Eye.
Yeah, so Siva is this kind of like new thing that, they were trying to kind of keep away because it was like really powerful, but the Fallen have essentially gotten their hands on it. And
It's a nanobot plague, as Bungie was telling me.
yeah, so they're using that to kind of enhance, like they haven't totally figured it out yet, but like they've used it to like enhance themselves. So that's kind of where you start fighting different enemies now because they're kind of enhanced with the Siva. So you'll see, dregs do some stuff that's a little bit different where I think, if you kill them, sometimes, they'll have like this exploding orb that'll chase you. And if you don't shoot that orb, you and your teammates are going to get hurt. So that's like one dynamic. I think the Vandals throw down like those like mines that slow you. And so there's like a little bit of a different dynamic of gameplay in terms of like the Fallen you're dealing with. They're not exactly the same as you fought them before. And the strikes are kind of the same, but there's like twists, I guess. So that's why you can call them remastered strikes, I guess, because you're kind of fighting the same bosses. Sans like that new one with the Ogre and the kind of like the Archon, but like the Sepix one, you pretty much go through it the same way. You got to fight through the first part, which is like in a warehouse area, which is like almost the same, just kind of different enemy types a little bit.
It reminds me of like the Taken enemies. They were it was like the three factions just like redone a little bit with Taken abilities and whatnot, like the Scream, Throw, and that one.
Yeah, that was super annoying though. The captain thing that would blind you. Yeah. So it's kind of more like that. I mean, the twists are interesting, but like I would say, it's not that different, like sure, Sepix has like a shield now around him that's based off of a certain element type. So there's going to be a captain that's holding like a cannon that you have to kill, and then you can't damage Sepix until you shoot him with the, the type of element that you need to get the shield off. And then you resume DPS at that point. The first time I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But then, you can do it a couple more times and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, it's just a little trick and that's fine, I guess.
What about PvP mode? I played a little bit at Gamescom.
Yeah, so
which is essentially it's kill confirmed.
Yeah, kill
what
confirmed.
Is it?
It's called Supremacy,
Yeah.
but it's essentially kill confirmed. So every time you kill, an opposing Guardian, they're gonna drop a crest, is what they're called. And I guess the unique twist is that you can kind of see the emblem of the class you killed. I guess I never really paid attention to it. It was just more like, oh, there's like an engram looking thing. I better pick that up, or you can deny it, etc.
Sure.
It's fun. I mean, some of the maps almost seemed in a way designed for that kind of mode because there's a lot more areas where there's like close quarters and whatnot.
Sure,
so you're
yeah.
just really fighting over the crests and whatnot. So it's kind of faster paced, I would say.
I don't know if it was I think it was Skyline, because there's like, it says in the embargo, we talk about Skyline, the last exit maps, but I think it was Skyline. It was kind of like this exterior ring around these close quarters inner corridors and whatnot. And that's where it got pretty hectic when you were rounding a corner to get a dog tag or whatever.
Dog tag.
Sorry.
You COD, man.
Still
You love that COD,
stuck
huh?
in kill confirmed.
Yeah.
But then that like makes you go into there where like there's probably 3 people with shotguns waiting for you to come try to grab it.
It's kind of that old thing with Call of Duty. Same thing. It's like, do people bait the crests and have you like want to go pick it up and just wait for you to kill you, or are people just going to chase after it? It's kind of that dynamic that's not in Destiny yet, but I think if you played a Call of Duty, you're familiar with that kind of game type.
Sure.
It's fun. It's fast. I mean, I think the new Iron Banner is going to be Supremacy. So that's cool. They've said that already.
It definitely feels like more of a DLC in this sense than like a traditional expansion, whereas Taken King felt like a big expansion to me. Well, it was. It
This
revamped
still
a lot
at
of
least
things.
still has a raid too, which
Yeah.
will come out 3 days after. I didn't get to see the raid, so I'm still interested
Friday
in that.
after?
Yeah, it comes out Friday to give
Cool.
people enough time to kind of get up to speed to do it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that is Destiny Rise of Iron, the new expansion coming out. It'll be September 20th for PS4, Xbox One for $30.
Yep, at 2 a.m. Pacific.
Cool. So that will be out in next week.
Yep. You're reviewing that, right?
I am. We'll be streaming at like 2 a.m. I think, you and I.
Oh,
I think so.
Really?
We did it last time for Taken King. We had that. We got to come up with a new bet.
That was a crappy bet. We don't speak of that bet.
It all came down to I had like this new cape on that boosts your experience because we were both like popping the bounties that we had saved up beforehand. And I don't even.
The bet got completed in less than 5 minutes.
I didn't have you buy me a
Boring.
steak. You got me like sushi for lunch instead of a steak because
it was
I
just-
felt bad about it.
Gas station sushi.
It felt anticlimactic, very, very much so. And it was just like, all right, cool. Okay, we're done with the bet, guys. Let's go into the game.
Yeah, and by that point I was coffee crashing at 2 a.m. I think same thing launched. Anyway,
That'll be great.
yeah. You don't play Destiny? I remember for
I
Taken
want
King you
to.
tried getting into it a little bit.
No.
They're back into it.
No.
No,
Wanted to.
not your thing.
I
You don't
want
like
to.
chores.
I want to get
Like
into
Tay.
Destiny, but you know what it is? It's the loot that I want, and I like the gameplay. Like I played it when it first came out, like even back in the beta, and I enjoyed that. But it didn't grab me. It was just so much of a shooter without enough narrative, and
It's better now. I wouldn't say like it's like, oh my god, it's like crazy better, but it's definitely it's in a way better place than it was when you played.
man, I just need more time at this stage.
Yeah.
That's all there is preventing
Destiny
me from
2.
doing it.
Yeah, I know. Like I'm sure we'll do a segment soon about like where they go from here with Destiny 2 or something. But I'll be playing with you. Get my light
Yeah.
level up to speed before I haven't played in a
Scrub.
while. I've been playing the last couple of days. Get raid ready when it comes out because there's gonna be a spark of light again to get you.
Yeah, but
level.
that one, like if you haven't been playing or if you want to play a different class or something like that, let's say you've been playing Hunter, but you're like, oh, I want to play Titan for Rise of Iron, it'll bring you up to level 40, which is like max actual like level, and then it'll also bring you up to 280 light level, which is like, based off your gear, but you'll get somewhere to start, I
Cool.
guess. Yeah.
So, yeah, I
That's
guess-
collection though. That's the $60 one.
Cool. We kind of kept talking about it, so just to close it out again. Destiny Rise of Iron, $30, PS4, Xbox One, September 20th. Keep an eye out for it. All right, that's the end of our show. We kind of went long today, but we had a lot of things to talk about. It's our first without Danny.
Yeah.
Which I don't know why that would make us go long, but it did.
That guy.
Yeah, I'm going to go try to play Rocket League. Well, no, Destiny, I guess. No, just kidding. I'm getting ready for Rise of Iron.
Play
Playing
both.
Rocket League in the
You
meantime.
got two
I have
hands.
time for both. I got some things I got to do first.
Gross.
I
Shoot.
don't have anything to
Go to the
do.
bathroom.
I really...
This
yeah,
is
first and
evolving
then-
really quickly.
Yeah. Anyway, as always, thanks for joining us in the lobby at 2 p.m. every week here at GameSpot. Talk about video games. And you can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher. We'll be
Yep,
around.
SoundCloud.
SoundCloud, yeah. So cool. Thanks for joining us. And until then, we will see you next week.